Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, Sheikh Taha.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Sheikh Habib.
Jazakallah khairan for agreeing and coming all the way from Pennsylvania to share some insight, some feedback, some advice, inshallah, for the youth, for the community. You are an Imam of a prison, is it a chaplain or Imam?
Yeah, we're, the official title is chaplain,
Yeah,
but we go by Imam.
okay.
So they might say Islamic chaplain, but I'm Imam of prison in Pennsylvania, yeah.
And also you are the director of Quran program,
Yeah, a part-time health program at ICP in Pennsylvania.
inshallah. So, but you started your education at the University of Medina?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I started the journey, I was studying Arabic at the Ma'had here in Virginia. And then from there, I applied to the Islamic University of Medina. And alhamdulillah, I got accepted in '03. And I was able to graduate, take 2 years for the Arabic program and then 4 years for the bachelor's. So I graduated from the College of Dawah and Usul al-Din in 2010. Alhamdulillah.
So since you got accepted into Medina at the age of 21, we're going to ask you 21 questions,
All right,
inshallah.
no problem, mashallah.
But let's start with Medina, inshallah. I mean, you said that you were starting to learn Arabic at the Mahad, but what was the inspiration? What was the motivation for you to become a student of knowledge?
I mean, to be honest, I went to public school. I grew up in Virginia, and then we moved to Pennsylvania, and in Pennsylvania, I was going to the Islamic Saudi Academy in Virginia, and so then when we moved to Pennsylvania, I went to public school for the first time, and my football coach inspired me in a weird way. He was, it was an interesting experience going from an Islamic environment, Islamic community, thriving Islamic community in Virginia and DC metropolitan area, and then going to Pennsylvania that was kind of just starting, or at least coming together as a community. And from Islamic school where it was only boys only school, then going to a public school that has boys and girls and that different environment. So I was trying to figure out how to be me. So then finally I was able to become more confident in my Islamic identity, and my football coach actually observed that, and they began to see how I was doing more things related to my religion and more concerned about my religion. So he made it a point to try to show me the flaws in Islam. And I remember one day in class we had a world history. He was my world history teacher in high school, and he was saying some negative things about Islam, and I was objecting to them. But I didn't have any real evidence for what I was saying. And I felt really kind of annoyed at myself that I believe Islam is the truth, but I don't have any knowledge to prove that. So then I said, you know what, I want to learn more, and it got me more encouraged to try to learn here in America as much as I could. And then ultimately, through just surfing the web, I found out about the Islamic University of Medina, and I said, okay, I want to go there. And that was kind of the birth of my, my desire to I want to go and study Islam. It's one thing you want to kind of learn more, you're inquisitive about the religion, but then at that moment I realized I really want to try my best to learn my religion thoroughly.
But going to Medina, you've never been to Medina before, have you?
Yeah, I had. It's a very interesting series of events. But when I moved back from Pennsylvania to Virginia to go to the Ma'had, I met a brother who would also later go to the Islamic University. He actually went a year before me, but he introduced me to someone, and through that organization I went with them for Hajj. And I was able to, going, of course, to see Saudi Arabia for the first time and see Mecca and Medina for the first time. It like kind of solidified that desire. Like, I really want to go and try to go to Medina, and I didn't really put in my mind any other university. So I had just kind of put my mind that Medina is the only. It's like Medina or nothing. So that was kind of the beginning of why I chose Medina. And then, unfortunately, like I said, different events that happened, but I applied once in Philadelphia. They had a conference. I applied there, and the students were like, oh, I mean, the participants with me, they were like, oh, you're going to go and look at how the mashayikh there are talking to you, engaging with you. That means you got in. And, there's always this unwritten code of like hints that you got in. So that even increased my desire even more that I wanted to go. And so finally, I didn't get in that year, so I eventually was able to go on an Umrah trip and then apply in person, and alhamdulillah, the following year I was accepted.
But my point is that Medina, compared to United States of America, it's a new country, new culture, new environment. What were some of the challenges you had to face?
Well, of course, so many challenges. Being away from home, being away from your family, what you understand as, like, in your own country, you understand the culture. So while you may see, our brothers and sisters from Saudi Arabia here in America, they have acclimated to American culture. But now you have to acclimate to their culture. And a lot of times it's new, it's different than how we do things in America. Sometimes on a very positive note, it's more Islamic. Sometimes it's just different style of doing things. So that was a huge challenge. You have to get used to going where you struggle to express yourself, you're not really that good in the language, things of that nature. And then just normal life as a student has its ups and downs. So there were, I wouldn't say a lot of challenges, but a lot of small things that you have to adjust to. And within, depending on your level of motivation and the tawfiq that Allah gives you, sometimes you're able to encounter good friends who help you get adjusted, or, kind of older students who know, okay, well, this is what you should do. Because sometimes it can get frustrating. Maybe you have paperwork that you're trying to get completed, and if you don't know the right person when you go in there into the administrative office, that could turn you off to the point where, you know what, I'm just going to go home. There are a lot of students who would get frustrated with certain things that, had they had the proper guidance through it, they would have been able to maneuver out of it. So alhamdulillah, once many of us, my other fellow American students, many of us, most of us in my class at least, once we got used to it, it was much more manageable, and then of course enjoyable, because you're in Medina. You get to go to the Haram every day if you choose to, all the different sites in Medina. You're only a couple hours, for us it's like going to New York to go to Mecca. Like, you can decide you want to go in the morning and come at night. You can say, I'm going to go in Isha and come back before Fajr. That's one of the biggest things I miss, is that ability to just, say I need to go to Mecca and get some stress relief, But alhamdulillah.
So to someone seeking knowledge, right, what would you say is the most important characteristic or trait they should gain or need when seeking knowledge?
Of course, first and foremost, like the ulama have mentioned, as the Prophet ﷺ told us in the hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Ikhlas is the most important quality or characteristic you have to have. And with that sincerity, Allah opens up doors. Every student will see that Allah is going to test their level of commitment. And the more sincere you are to learn what you need to learn and to get whatever you think are the essential information you need, you'll be able to endure. And obviously, like any student, you have to be committed, you have to be consistent, you have to know, what you want. Because especially at a university level, there's so many scholars around you. if you decide to go in one direction, it may, although you may become skilled in that or knowledgeable in that one area, it may take you away from your ultimate goal. If you study one science too much or one science too little, you have to kind of be able to direct or know how much you need in order to get to your ultimate goal, because as sometimes many students realize at the end of the journey when they graduate that your time is limited, and you may not always have the opportunity to go back, because as soon as you get back to your country, you're needed.
Yeah.
And so you may not have that luxury of, okay, I'm going to go back and study, I'm going to go back and, do this or do that. So it's knowing what is the essential things you need to learn, and then of course, learning them.
You mentioned friends. What were some of your best friends? Friends you look up to, friends you hang out during in
Again,
Medina?
it's like a weird kind of turn of events. When I first got to the university, I decided to reconnect with my roots, right? So my father's from Nigeria, and I decided to try to get connected and get acquainted with the students from Nigeria. So I was able to find some Nigerian students from the same area as where my father is from, and get to know them, get a little bit aware of the culture there. And many of them were good students. One of my close friends, he's now the mufti of his area in Nigeria. He was valedictorian of his class, in tafsir and Quran, and specializing in tafsir. So I was able to meet them. And then as I got a little bit, the years went by, you get a little bit nostalgia. You miss what you grew up as an American. So I started to hang around more Americans, more Westerners. And again, I always have these interesting stories. I had a dorm. He wasn't my roommate, but he was in the same floor on the dorms in Medina or in the university. And we had a little altercation that we didn't like each other. And through a weird series of events, one day he asked me, can you be my roommate? And then I looked at who the students were with him in the dorm, because sometimes you can benefit a lot from the people you live with.
Yeah.
So I looked at some of his roommates, and I was seeing what kind of students they were and how serious they were, and I realized, this might be to my advantage to agree, even though we don't really like each other. And he, amazingly, subhanAllah, through Allah's tawfiq, we became extremely close friends. He's from Ireland. His name was actually Ramadan Habib.
Okay.
So, I became very, very close friends, alhamdulillah. And he and another brother named Kashif from London. To the point where when I would hang around my American friends, I didn't realize I adopted their accent and their words, So my friends would be like, oh, why do you think you're British? Why do you sound British? And I had no clue that I had started to adapt. So, along the way you meet people, and I think that's another extreme benefit of the university, is to be acquainted with different Muslims around the world.
Yeah.
You get to experience a little bit of Islam from every part of the world, and you get to see that how global the deen is and how united we really are. And at least I didn't keep in touch that much, but for a moment in time I felt like there's no place in the Muslim world that I don't have somebody that I can call who can help me when I get there. If you were able to make a little phone book or something like that, it would be amazing to the amount of connections you make. And like I said, that my friend from Nigeria, who would have known that tomorrow, 10 years, 15 years later, he became an important person in his country. So, and there are a lot of people from all over America, all over the world, where we're all students, we're all figuring it out, but later on they move. So those relationships are extremely valuable.
Were you a good student?
To be quite honest, as I say, alhamdulillah, I think the students from the West, in particular America, today are much more advantaged than we are, or than I was when I began, because we didn't, at a university level, there's an expectation, right? You wouldn't expect that in America, you go to a university and you have to teach a student elementary level information, or middle school information. But for us, many of us, we didn't go through a system of studying Islamic sciences, like of usul al-fiqh and fiqh, even for that matter, or musalah hadith and hadith, all these supplementary sciences that make you prepared and a strong university student. And although there are exceptions, mashallah, many students, American students, who excelled and were able to kind of master the system. As for me, I was kind of an average student.
So, but were there any like subjects that you excelled, you look forward to?
I have always had an appreciation of history, so I did very well, alhamdulillah, in the history topics, like in Sirah and the Khulafa al-Umayyah, and we have like a semester dedicated to the Khulafa al-Rashida. And so basically, it's almost like a dual major in Kulit al-Dawah, in the College of Dawah. So you major in Aqidah, and then you also major in history. So for the history subjects, I really enjoyed them, as well as the Aqidah subjects, because Aqidah is the foundation, and that's really, when you go to any community, that's what's most needed. You're giving da'wah on the street, you're giving da'wah to the youth, you're helping in the community. That understanding of our core beliefs is essential, but also seeing it in practice through the history, it allows you to see the evolution of Islam over the centuries and over different parts of the world. So I think that really attracted me, was the historical points of the university.
Do you have any specific like book or text that you like you look back on, you like really love reading it?
Obviously, a Sirah Nabawiyah. I love reading the Sirah, and you definitely grow an attachment to the Prophet ﷺ more when you read and understand the events. And as you live life, really, it's kind of the appreciation of the Sirah becomes greater when you look at, okay, well, how did I deal with a similar circumstance compared to how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with it? And then you say, well, wow, that's an amazing, I don't know how he could have gotten through that situation considering the circumstances. So now when you put your own personal experience with what the Prophet ﷺ did, you grow an extreme love for the Prophet ﷺ. So definitely the Sirah is what I enjoy reading the most out of, of course, out of anything else when it comes to just the sciences. I also ended up becoming acquainted with usul al-fiqh, and I studied with one of the students of Sheikh Muhammad al-Amin al-Shinqiti, rahimahullah, Sheikh Ahmed Abdul Wahab al-Shinqiti, and he was an extremely well-versed teacher in usul al-fiqh, and it was a beautiful experience to go through, because that was on the side, that was outside of the university studies. So I would sit with him for long periods of time. I would follow him from the time he would get out of his car to arrive to the Masjid al-Nabawi. I would meet him at his car. I would walk him to the place where he used to sit, and then I would sit there with him all day, or as much as the period of time he was there. And then I would walk him back to the car, and I had so many different experiences with him. So from the university studies, of course, Aqidah and history I enjoyed. And outside, I studied a lot of books in usul al-fiqh, like Waraqat, and mainly I did the nazm of the poem of Waraqat, and the Waraqat itself, the book, and then I did the Mudhakkira, which is it's like an explanation, Sheikh Muhammad al-Amin al-Shinqiti rahimahulah's explanation of Rawdat al-Nadhr, which is, so in that, it's amazing because you're studying, if you master that book, the Mudhakkira, you're basically studying two schools you're studying usul al-fiqh from two madhabs. From the Hanbali madhab, because the book is made as an explanation of Rawdat al-Nadhr, which is a Hanbali book of usul al-fiqh. And then because the teacher is a Maliki, and he actually brings excerpts from Maraqi Saud, so if you master that book, it's as if you've learn the usul al-fiqh of the Maliki madhab and the Hanbali madhab at the same time.
So, was he the teacher that influenced you the most, or were there any other scholars or teachers that?
I would say, as far as the teacher that I was able to uh, um, sit with the most, he was the most available for me, and I appreciated the level of knowledge he had, and also seeing that knowledge in action. There was, certain things that I would notice that I would, like there's one incident where someone was talking to him about some of the political events that were going on in the world. And I had never, ever heard him talk about it. Like I had sat with him maybe for a few years, maybe 1 or 2 years, never heard him mention anything about his participation in different events that had happened. And someone was questioning him, saying, kind of attacking him on behalf of the country, saying, "Oh, how come you scholars are not saying anything, and this is going on in the world, and why are you guys quiet?" And then he began to say, "Well, we're not saying anything, or we're not doing anything for this reason." And then the person was trying to say, like, "You don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah.
And then he said, no, I do know what I'm talking about, because in this date, at this time, I was doing this, and this is what we observed from the people at that time. And so I really saw the idea of humility, and not always, whatever you do of good, that there's no need to show anyone that you did it unless there's a need to show it, You don't have to say it just because some topic came up and, well, let me get the chance to tell everybody what I did. So those are the kinds of experiences that I was able to benefit from the Sheikh. But of course, other mashayikh there, Sheikh Abdul Muhsin, Hafidhullah, who stopped teaching, but definitely benefiting from his classes. Other teachers from the university itself. I got different professors that had a powerful effect. So, but I think Sheikh Ahmed was definitely one of the ones that I was able to grow a very close relationship with. Walillahi alhamd.
So, how long were you at Medina?
A total of 6.5 years.
Okay.
So if you include both programs, the Arabic program and the bachelor's program.
So now you come back to the US. What were some expectations placed on you immediately?
You realize, okay, that's kind of I think the dilemma many students, even till today, face is, unfortunately, there are limited places where you can fully teach what you've learned. And you come back and you have all this energy and desire to, okay, I learned this, let me immediately teach it, but you don't really have, either you don't have the audience, or you don't have the students who are ready, they're at the level where they can actually benefit from those sciences. So coming back, it was kind of like, it was a happy but sad experience of wanting to try, and I did. Like, for example, I was able to teach at Al-Huda school for a few years, actually both Al-Hudas, Al-Huda in Maryland and Al-Huda in PA. And I tried to, teach a little bit of what I learned, and the students benefited. But when afterwards, I kind of realized, maybe this wasn't the most important thing to teach. But at least I can say now, with those students, alhamdulillah, that exposure to those sciences created in them the desire to learn more. So there's always that balance, and some communities are more equipped than others, or they have the platform that makes it, you can go, you study Sharia, you study Quran, you study Hadith, that you have students who are ready to jump in and get what you have. But I guess it kind of depends on where you come from, or what community you came from, and more likely, or more importantly, I guess, what community you want to return to. So if you want to return to your own community, you have to work within their level. And you may have to, if you're set that you have to teach, if you want to teach those sciences that are higher level, then you may have to travel to another community that can accommodate your passion.
So when you came back, did you feel that you were disconnected from the community? Like, the problems have evolved from when you were there versus when you came back?
To be honest, I would say there is a culture shock. I would
Yeah.
almost say that I became, um, I guess my culture had developed to become more towards Saudi culture, if I'm going to be honest. And you look at things with the Saudi lens of what's acceptable and unacceptable. And as I began to become more and more acclimated or reacclimated to the American culture, it's like, for example, I would go to the store and hear music in the grocery store or in a whatever, any kind of department store, restaurant, anything, and I'd be like getting annoyed at why is there music. Then after a while, you learn how to just, just zone it out and focus. So I guess the point is just that once you get readjusted to your community, you begin to or try to focus on what's most important to them, and you begin to reacclimate to what are the necessities of my community and how can I be of benefit to that community.
So you were a teacher. Then how soon was the transition from a teacher to be an imam?
So I think I was at Al Huda School in Maryland for about 3 years, and then I went to Al Huda School in PA for a year. And the imam, one of the imams of Pennsylvania, the old imam of the masjid I used to go to when I was a teenager, he called me and said, "Hey, there's a position open. I think you should apply for it. It has all these benefits and advantages of this is, you're needed in this kind of an area." And so I said, "Okay, sure," and I applied, and excuse me, alhamdulillah, I was able to get the job. So I actually moved to New Jersey for about 3 years and started becoming a chaplain there. And then it was just due to some of the being far away from your family. You've been gone now for 6, 7 years, and now you're gonna stay away from my family and my extended family. So I ended up slowly working my way back to Pennsylvania, to where I am now, where I'm a chaplain here in Pennsylvania and close still in my community. So that's kind of how it started.
What were some of the challenges you faced as an imam or a chaplain?
I was, or as an imam, there's a different dynamic to our brothers in the correctional institutions, and they come from sometimes very hard background, hard lifestyle, but it's also an amazing thing to see. You'll see brothers who have never left the prison. They accepted Islam in prison. They've learned Arabic in prison. They've learned different books in prison. They can translate effectively. I'm not just saying, you see some exceptional examples of brothers who, whatever limited access they have to phone calls or different students of knowledge in America or abroad, how they're able to learn. So it's impressive to see that things, great things can be done to people who are motivated. But you also have the dynamic of changing the behavior. People who have habits, they've grown up with a certain understanding of this being right, when as far as Islam is concerned, it may be considered wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the most difficult thing, is to how do you help them, kind of conform to the Islamic character.
Do you get often difficult questions that you have to take a step back and think about answering?
I mean, yeah, definitely. Different questions Islamically that they do. It keeps you on your toes, definitely. And then
any common theme between these questions?
Common theme, I would say, again, usually it is how to deal with certain behaviors or types of situations as far as within the system. Like, what do you do with a person who may be affiliated with a gang, or he may still have some practices that are haram? How should I interact with that kind of a person, or how does the person himself move away from that lifestyle? And of course, getting the brothers to understand that, is it possible for a Muslim to be a Muslim and still have certain practices or certain behaviors, or I guess more importantly, certain allegiances to a different group. They may be conflicted with, well, these people have either helped me in some kind of way, or if I don't help them, there could be consequences to me if I don't do what they ask me to do, or I may be isolated if I don't hang around these different brothers. So getting them out of that mentality and able to accept, I don't want to say accept Islam, but more like give up the old bad practices and say that there will be challenges to be a Muslim and to be a practicing Muslim, but the benefits outweigh any harm from leaving it, and any benefit from staying in it.
So
staying in that
is
lifestyle.
most of the people you interact with, are they mostly converts? Are they mostly
In the prison system, yeah. Of course,
Okay.
you have different scenarios of Muslims who were accepted Islam before they came in, but they weren't really practicing, or some from Muslim families who just strayed. So you do have that, but the overwhelming majority are Muslim converts. And like I said, some of them, they learned everything, in prison. All their learning is from prison. It's not like someone from the outside
yeah.
gave them dawah or something.
So then what advice would you give to someone who converted in prison, or they are in prison and they converted? What would you?
Really, it's to stick with the basics. Learn the basics of the religion and master the basics. Acquaint yourself with good practicing Muslims, and if they have the opportunity to leave prison, to find a good masjid that is following the Quran and Sunnah, so that they can. I always share with them that, anything you need in life, from my own personal experience, I've seen the masjid will always be a benefit. Spiritual benefit to connect with your creator, but also you find doctors, you find all kinds of different professionals that can help you in anything, get a job, find an apartment, whatever that is needed, that you'll see that the masjid is the best place. And on top of that, the masjid is where you find those brothers who are consistent and they don't have that bias, because sometimes the brothers struggle with being accepted as a former prisoner, or as a as a revert Muslim. Sometimes they may be seen as second class. But I always share with them that the brothers and sisters who pray regularly at the masjid, you're not going to find that. You're going to see the real brotherhood and sisterhood.
Is there one act of worship that you would suggest to people that they try and they can be consistent at it?
I would say tahajjud, of course, dua, and reading Quran, connecting themselves with the Book of Allah. Definitely those are...
One act.
One, then I would say, I don't know, I would say dua. Dua does wonders. Some people may not be, for whatever reason, be able to be consistent with tahajjud, but I think every one of us can be consistent in dua and never diminish the impact it can make and how effective it can be. That just, some people think it's the last thing you do, or you do it when you have no other option. No, it's the first option, it's the last option, and you try everything else in between. So definitely dua works.